Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the Universal Design Project. I had the opportunity to sit down with a close friend and colleague and hear her share her story about what it was like having breast cancer and how this has impacted her life. Throughout the interview, Sara will share her experience on what it was like going through chemotherapy and radiation and how those treatments impacted her physically. Sara shares some really good tips and advice surrounding the etiquette for interacting with people who have cancer. She will also share her experiences about the ways in which cancer impacted the way she did things in her home and in the community that she was used to doing independently. Thanks for listening to Sara's story.
Hi, my name is Sara Papa. I am 27 years old. I live in Zion Crossroads, Virginia, and I'm currently an occupational therapy student at Murphy-Deming College, where I graduate this May.
Okay. So Sara, can you tell me some basic details about your illness, like maybe share some of the background, and just kind of go from there?
Yeah, sure. So it all started, I would say, June 2017. I was at my first level 2 at Augusta Health. And on my right breast, I felt a lump. And, I didn't think anything of it because I naturally have very dense tissue in my breast, and it's common for being at such a young age. So when I noticed that the lump, unfortunately, got a little bigger in size within a short time frame, about a week or so, my husband's like, Sara, something's going on, you need to get that looked at. And, I was just kind of like, yeah, sure, I should. So I made an appointment with the OBGYN, and they told me it was a fibroadenoma, which is a benign tissue, because when you can move the mass in my breast, and it didn't stay in one place by itself. So they took their sweet time, unfortunately, to book me a ultrasound and a mammogram at Augusta Health. So didn't get that done probably until the end of June.
Okay. And
when I did, they told me, unfortunately, that they were 95% sure, according to the results, that it was breast cancer.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was quite a reality shock. So then after that, we decided to get treated at UVA Hospital, and UVA Hospital actually did the biopsy, and they confirmed that, unfortunately, I had breast cancer, and yeah, went from there.
Okay.
Changed my world.
Okay.
So they diagnosed me with stage 2B breast cancer, since I had a 5-centimeter tumor on my right side of the breast, and it unfortunately did spread to my lymph nodes. So I do have 3 small lymph nodes that were affected. So after talking to my oncologist team about the next step, the next direction to take in all of this, they recommended that my treatment plan would consist of 6 sessions of chemotherapy, followed by a bilateral mastectomy, and then 25 rounds of radiation.
Okay. And all this while that you were going through the treatment, Sara, you were still enrolled at the program at Murphy-Deming, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you had a lot on your plate, it sounds
I did,
like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say that going through chemo, going through surgery, going through radiation, each different type of treatment had a complete different effect on my body, and they all took a toll. And for example, chemotherapy completely wiped me out. Like, I don't know a better word to use than that. My whole body was going through war fighting these drugs that they were using with me, and I lost my hair. I became super, super weak, very fatigued. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even hold food down. Eating was an issue. Just taking fluids, drinking. I couldn't drink. My sleep. Oh my goodness. Sleeping was very difficult.
Okay.
Just the easiest thing to do was probably to breathe. Everything else was tough. Just moving, getting around, just basic ADLs of dressing, bathing, grooming, and driving just really took a toll on you. For surgery, I would say after getting my bilateral mastectomy, I couldn't do anything. I was in so much pain that even sitting was unbearable. All I did was I had to sit and sleep in my chair, and thankfully my mother was there to help take care of my bathing and dressing and feeding needs. But I would just say that if I didn't have the support of my family, it would have been very tough if I was on my own going through this.
Right.
And then with the radiation comes terrible side effects of burning and the fatigue. Oh my goodness, the fatigue is awful. But it's easier to manage when you have supportive family and friends to help you.
Okay. So Sarah, you mentioned that you had chemotherapy mixed with radiation appointments. So where do you stand in terms of how far along you are in that process with that? Like, are you done with treatments? Do you have any upcoming treatments? What does that look like?
So I finished my chemotherapy in November, had my surgery in December, and now I'm currently going through radiation treatment.
Okay.
I actually only have 2 more days left of radiation. I'm done tomorrow.
Awesome.
So
good. That's
yes.
probably a really good feeling at this point.
Yes, but then so I'm done with my actual treatment, but then of course after this I have hormone therapy for about 10 years.
Okay. You know, you'll be over the humps of the chemo and the radiation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So Sarah, can you tell me how going through chemo and radiation, how that impacted your daily routine? And are there still some things that you have trouble with today?
Sure. So first, going through chemo was probably the toughest out of all of it. When I was going through chemo, I couldn't do the things that I loved anymore. It was just tough to wake up in the morning, and it was just even tough to try to sleep. I barely got any sleep because I felt sick all the time. It was hard going into work. It was hard walking. I had no energy. I remember where I literally had to crawl on my hands and knees just to get to the bathroom because I was too weak to walk, and I didn't have anyone at home at the time because my husband was at work. And I will never forget just how weak you really feel and how sick to your stomach you are. It's, my best way to explain chemo is think of it as your worst hangover combined with a flu.
Okay.
Like, it takes a huge toll on you, and I would have to say just showering was tough. Bathing, standing, oh my goodness, I couldn't stand for more than a minute.
Okay.
If I stood longer for like a minute or two, I would feel so dizzy and lightheaded, and I would feel sick to my stomach. I would have to change my morning routines of just brushing your teeth. Usually when you brush your teeth, you stand at the sink and you have no problem. I couldn't even do that. I had to brush my teeth sitting on the toilet or just sitting somewhere. To have support to keep myself up or in an upright position was very tough.
Okay.
Showering, oh my goodness, I wish I had a shower chair. But you wouldn't think that you would need a shower chair being 26 at the time, but my goodness, I couldn't even take showers without feeling faint or feeling sick, and I had to have someone help bathe me and someone to change, to help dress me. I couldn't even put my jeans on or my shirt on without needing help. Driving
Definitely
very tough. It was a very, very tough thing. I would sometimes have to pull over on the side of the road while I was driving just to take a break and just to breathe, because just pushing the pedal and just cognitively being aware of your surroundings when you're driving was very tough, when all you wanted to do was curl up in a ball and be home and just try to sleep and try not to feel sick. So I would say during chemotherapy, it changed completely. I couldn't do my everyday routine of just waking up, getting ready, going to work, coming back.
Of the dogs.
Couldn't take care of the dogs and all. Couldn't even cook for myself.
Okay.
Couldn't even make meals. You were just so weak and so sick to do anything. Couldn't even eat. Even eating was too much work.
Did you modify your food at all? Did you eat softer foods? Or
I barely had anything to eat. Everything I tried to eat, I couldn't hold it down. So for me, it was just trying to keep my fluids And if I did eat something, it would be just like soup, but very basic, boring soup, like broth, or, you know, my mother would give me really good Korean soup to help, but just eating and drinking was also very difficult to manage.
Okay. So Sara, you mentioned that you decided to stay in Murphy Deming's program for occupational therapy in order to graduate on time. Can you tell me about what your fieldwork experience was like?
Yeah, so when I was going through chemotherapy, my oncologist told me that, you know, you're going to have a very weak immune system. And I was actually supposed to be at an outpatient pediatric clinic in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And when I told her that, she was like, Sara, no, you cannot be near kids when you go through chemo, because it will totally have a detrimental impact on your health.
Right.
So I contacted the director of our program and I told her my situation, and she was great. She was very supportive and understanding. Like, the whole school has been very supportive and understanding throughout this whole process. And she immediately found me another location for my level 2.
Okay.
So I was at Western State,
Okay.
which is an inpatient psychiatric hospital.
Okay.
So while being at Western State and going through chemo, it was quite challenging just because of how big the facility was and how long the hallways were. So just getting around and trying to get to the office and the classrooms was quite challenging for me. And that's when I realized the importance of energy conservation. Luckily, Western State had benches built into the walls in every hallway. So just getting through, I had to walk maybe like a little bit, then sit and breathe. And then once I felt better, walk a little bit more. And that's how I definitely got around at Western State. So it was challenging, but we made it work. So as far as my living conditions during this whole process, I lived in a townhome, and it was 2 floors with stairs, narrow stairs to go to the second floor. My bedroom was located on the second floor, as well as a shower.
Okay.
So I would say that became a pain in my butt. I couldn't even walk up the stairs. Like, we definitely had to change where I would be sleeping. So we decided that the easiest thing for me to do was just to sleep downstairs on the couch. And I even had to sleep in an upright position, because sleeping flat on my back, I felt so sick. I felt so nauseous. And I had to sleep was prompted up with pillows behind my back. And it was just difficult, because I wish that my bedroom was on the first floor. I wish everything was on the first floor. My husband had to actually carry me up and down the stairs during this whole process, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't even walk up those stairs. I could crawl up those stairs, but that was even tough to do.
I'm sure that probably took a lot more energy on your hands and
knees. Oh my goodness, yes. So even having the shower on the second floor was so tough that I ended up just sponge bathing. Because I couldn't, downstairs, because I couldn't even make it upstairs. And yes, my husband would carry me upstairs, but when it comes down to it, I couldn't even shower or bathe myself. I had to have him help me if I really wanted a nice long shower.
Right.
But as far as the kitchen, I didn't have energy to walk to the kitchen. I couldn't even reach up to grab and open the cabinets. I couldn't even reach down below to get things out, because that was even tough to do.
And especially after having the surgery, you go home on a set of precautions, so they don't want you lifting your arms above your head.
After surgery, all you could do was sit there.
Okay.
You weren't allowed to cook, clean, nothing. Like, most people hire a full-time nurse after surgery. And me being a student, I didn't have that option. And luckily I had my mother, so I went home and stayed with her for a few weeks until I got better. So I was lucky to have my mom to take care of all those needs for me.
Absolutely. And then you and your husband relocated, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we decided to move closer to UVA hospital, because just making that commute every day was challenging enough.
Right.
So we decided the best thing for us was to be on the bottom floor first floor and just having everything on one floor and no stairs. So it worked out perfectly now that my bedroom and my shower is all on the same level. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So we definitely made those changes in our accommodation.
Okay. And if you guys ever decide to move out of the apartment, would you consider having only a one-level home?
Probably. I think I like the one-level home because you never know what happens in life.
Yeah.
And a one-level home is definitely more convenient and accessible, I feel like.
Okay.
So driving was tough. I tried to manage it as best as I could because, in a rural area such as this, there's not much public transportation. There's no buses really or Uber, especially where I was commuting from. So I just had to grin and bear it and drive, or sometimes I would carpool with people that I worked with.
That's smart.
That definitely helped a lot. Another thing that was tough was just getting to the hospital or just getting to any appointments. We don't get handicap stickers for being cancer patients, which I don't know how the whole process works, but I feel like it would really come in handy if we had some type of temporary permit to park closer to the building, because there was times where we had to park far and I couldn't make that walk.
Right.
So whoever I was with at the appointments, like my husband, would have to go and get a wheelchair and come back out and get me and wheelchair me all the way to my appointment, which took extra time.
Right.
But that was just definitely tough, like a huge change that I wish was easier for us at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
It impacted everything. What social life? I unfortunately couldn't really get out much into the community. I was so sick to my stomach and so weak and fatigued that I just stayed home. And if my friends wanted to come see me, they would have to visit me and come to me because there was no way I could go to them. It was very tough. Even getting wedding invitations or important things in other people's lives, I unfortunately had to decline because there was no way I could go out to the community and stand and just be part of a wedding or an event or social gatherings. It was tough. And grocery shopping, couldn't even do that into the community.
Wow.
I had to push one of those, electronic baskets and the scooters. That was my life.
Yeah.
And then I would get these weird looks from everyone. Like, what is this young person doing in this cart?
Right.
Because, a lot of people judge me based upon my age because they don't know what I'm going through. And that was just a little tough to go through.
Okay. Yeah. Especially having people in the community when they don't understand.
Yeah. Cancer does not discriminate. They look at me and they're like, oh, this young girl, why is she using this? Like, why is she sick? She shouldn't be sick. And you just get a lot of stares.
Did you ever have anybody come up to you who seemed curious to even ask you a question about why you were using a cart like that, when they typically might expect somebody else, like somebody older, to use it?
I did a couple of times. They just assumed that maybe I broke a bone in my leg and I was on like cast or something, like I had a cast on or something like that. But for the most part, it was just judgment.
Okay.
Judgment. And for the people that did come up to me, I would explain to them, and I'd get the same answer as, oh my goodness, you're way too young to be going through this. And of course, all the other questions would follow.
Yeah.
But more judgment and glares and actual them coming to see what was going on.
Yeah, but like you said, cancer doesn't discriminate, so it doesn't matter how old you are.
It still has the same effect on you if you're 20 versus 80.
Okay.
Same effect. I would say easier access to support groups or just a better means of transportation, of just getting around the community for those who cannot drive. Like, there was times where I dreaded driving, but that was the only way for me to get to place A to place B.
Okay.
And it would have just been nice to have more events out there geared towards your illness, so you don't feel like you're alone, especially at such a young age, and just getting support from people and becoming part of support groups and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think having that, social support like that, you might have even met people who were similar to your age that you could have shared experiences with.
Exactly.
That would have been really nice. Yeah.
So the nice thing about having support groups and being a part of a support group is to find someone else in a similar situation that has gone through what you've gone through, that gets it, that has been there before and knows and understands all the changes that your body is going through. Because having cancer at a young age compared to having it in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you're at complete different phases in your life. For me, being a newlywed, being in school, not having kids yet is completely different compared to those who have been married for a while or who have been working and who have had kids, who've had kids. So you're just at completely different phases of your life, and that definitely changes everything. But it's still great to have, friends. Like I have a lot of close friends that have reached out to me who have been so supportive and empathetic towards everything I've been going through and who have checked on me and kept up with me and everything. But it's just different because, I would say you truly don't get it. You truly don't understand unless you've gone through it yourself.
Right. It's that lived experience that, that
Yes.
offers the relatability and extra support.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely say be careful what you ask them. I have been asked some crazy questions, some inappropriate questions that just make your jaw go, what? A lot of people try to relate to you in the best way they can. And their best way to relate to you is, oh, I know someone with cancer. Like my aunt had breast cancer, or my mom had breast cancer, or so-and-so had this cancer. And, they try to relate to you that way by just saying that they know someone. But then they always end up saying, oh, but then she died, or he died, or she got really sick, or it came back again. Like, as a cancer patient and survivor, you do not want to hear those stories. You don't want to hear the negative stuff because we're fighting for our lives every day, and the fear of recurrence is real. You want to hear the positive, the success stories, the success I kicked cancer's butt stories.
Right.
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear the negativity, because you go through it. You go through all the different phases and all the different negative stuff that impacts you. So I would definitely say be careful of what you say to a cancer patient. And I know it's hard to find the right words to say.
Absolutely.
And, I get that. I get that. But especially when you say, how are you? Most people are going to be like, I'm fine, because you don't want to go into all the depths of what's really going on. But my word of advice to a cancer patient is, instead of saying, please let me, if you need any help or if you need any assistance, please let me know what I can do. Of course, the person's going to be like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that's very sweet of you. Instead, I would advise, hey, what are you doing next Saturday?
Right.
I'm going to come over and cook dinner for you, because any help of cooking, cleaning, just doing any type of those chores or just being there in person just makes a difference. So I would definitely say that would make someone smile. That would make any cancer patient smile, rather than just saying, how are you? If you need anything, please let me know. And, we get told over and over again how strong you are. And you're so strong. You're the strongest person I know. And
you inspire me.
Yes, we hear that on a daily basis. But to be honest, we don't have a choice.
Right.
It's either fight for your life or enter the pearly gates of heaven, like your pick, Right. And just, it gets exhausting hearing that, because you have to be like, what would you do if you were in my place, in my shoes? Would you give up or would you fight? Like, you have to fight. You don't have a choice. So that just gets a little tiring. Like, instead, I just have to say, when you are first learning and you first talk to a cancer patient, just really, truly be careful on what you say and try to be as understanding as possible and just try to be empathetic and just think about how you would feel and what kind of questions you would want to be asked if it was you going through cancer. And don't say things like, oh my goodness, you're so young, you could die at any day, you could come back at any day. It's like, well, no duh.
I'm well aware.
Like, or questions that make you feel worse about yourself. Like, oh my gosh, like it's so tough what you're going through. I can't even imagine what you're going through because it must be so tough. Like, I'm so glad that I'm not going through what you're going through. Like,
yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes when we ask those, or when people say those things, like you said, they're not really thinking about what they're actually saying. So I think it's really smart to be cautious with how you ask things and be thoughtful about your questions. If you want to know something,
I mean, yeah, I don't mind telling anyone my story at all. If they want to learn what it's like and the phases and the steps and the treatment, like I'm all for it. But please do not tell me a story about someone you know that passed away.
Right.
Or, I want to hear the happy, positive, fighting stories. Like, do not tell me anything gloomy and depressing because just going through cancer is depressing enough, Another good word of advice is please Google top things not to say to a patient with cancer and how to best approach them if you really want to know the best strategy without hurting their feelings.
And I think sometimes, if you just start talking to a person about everyday things, like what they like, eventually the answers to the questions that you have will come in a more like natural context versus being awkward and staging them right off the bat.
Yeah, and I would definitely say another thing is, being a cancer patient myself, you just want that sense of normalcy all over again. Yeah. So please don't treat us any different than we were prior to our diagnosis. Like, please tell us about your life and what you're going through and just like, your everyday conversation. Like, not everything has to be about cancer. Right. Like, please treat us the same as before. Don't treat us any different just because we're going through what we're going through.
Right. Or don't be extra best friends with you just because you have cancer now. Like,
yes. Oh my goodness, yes. So definitely for the community, I would say, please add more elevators or escalators. I mean, stairs are great, but not when you're going through cancer or any other illness. Definitely make things more accessible. Parking too, just getting around. And if you have super long hallways, please add benches for people to sit and take rest breaks and to breathe when they're walking around. And just, I would say automatic doors have definitely helped because just holding a door open and just trying to reach for that door has been tough. So just when you push a button, the door opens. It's great.
Either that or the ones at Target where they just automatically open as you. The sensory doors. Those are nice. Especially if you have precautions from not pushing anything, pulling anything, lifting.
Exactly. Oh yes.
Okay.
Sara shared some valuable insight into how her life was impacted by breast cancer. There are many different types of cancers and ways in which people react to treatments, so it's important to take Sara's perspective into consideration with home design. In terms of social inclusion, Sara mentioned that it was important to keep relationships person-centered and to focus on empowerment over the negative outcomes that can be associated with this disease. Thank you, Sara, for sharing your story and for being a dear friend. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you tune in for more stories from the Universal Design Project.